今天的单元非常特别哦，尼克跟我要把我们的秘密宝藏拿出来分享给大家，也就是8个我们常用来唬人的 GRE 单字。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Today, we're going to do something that we've never done on this particular podcast, but we're going to talk about vocabulary words that we use all the time that you actually don't need to know or even memorize. But they're some of our favorite go-to vocabulary words just because they're a little bit unique or quirky.
That's right. 所以今天要带给大家8个不同的算是 GRE 的单字。那这些单字呢是稍微比较少人会用，但是你当然还是会有的时候可能在电影里面啊、影集里面还是会听得到。We're going to start with the word accentuate.
Accentuate, meaning to highlight or make something more noticeable. This is a fun word just because it's a way to say that I really want to highlight or I really want to draw your attention to this. So I'm going to accentuate this point. The other way that you can use accentuate is to describe the way that someone wears a particular type of clothing, usually to show more of their body shape. So I could say that dress really accentuates your curves.
Yeah. And actually, I would say I hear this word a lot used in that sense, which is talking about the way someone dress. 尤其是用在我们女生啊，好像穿衣服的时候，有的时候我们比如说女生，你想要显你的腰身，那你就要弄一个皮带 ，right? Wearing a belt will accentuate your waistline. 通常我是听到是用在这样子的情况之下。
The next word is antagonize. Now, antagonize means to show open hostility or anger. Easiest way to picture this is if you have a teenager or if you've ever been around teenagers and they show you that disgust or like, you just don't get it. You can say that is a very antagonizing behavior.
Doesn't have to be just teenagers, I would say. Anyone range from age 7 and up. They can be very antagonistic. So basically, if you say, do this, and you get no, that's basically antagonistic.
Anytime that you're in an argument or some kind of debate and the other person you feel is specifically trying to trigger you or trying to have an argument with you, even though it's not necessarily, we'll say someone is being antagonistic. The most common way that you'll actually see this is if you ever study literary theory or film, etc., the villain, the bad guy in a story or a movie is called the antagonist.
记得以前高中的时候常要去分析一些故事嘛 So you always have to talk about who is the
protagonist
and
the hero.
Antagonist. That's right.
Our third word is one that I get made fun of a lot for using in the office because it's a word that's a little bit of a contradiction.
Yeah.
It's the word colloquial. And colloquial specifically means speech that is simple or informal. So when you talk about business vocabulary, a lot of people will talk about like very high-level fancy speech. But we often like to talk about you need to sound colloquial, which is you need to sound a little bit more informal. You need to sound like a person, not a robot reading an academic paper. But the funny thing about colloquial and why specifically Andrew likes to make fun of me a lot is because the word itself sounds very fancy and formal, even though it means to be informal. And I like to use it a lot.
There's nothing colloquial about the word colloquial.
Exactly.
Literally. 但是我觉得这个字真的还蛮好用的。It's really interesting to me to memorize this word colloquial. I think of the word local. I don't know. Like, to me, that just allows me to remember it. So that's just a little trick for you guys. If you think about local, 你可以就想着它比较 informal, 比较本土化一点. But somehow this word just sounds super smart.
The next word on my list is literally my favorite word. And there is no reason you should ever have to use this. But it is a ton of fun. And you will see it pop up occasionally. And it's just one of those words you're like, hey, I know that. I have no reason to know that, but I know that. The word is defenestrate. Sounds really complicated. Is this like a scientific academic term? No. Defenestrate means to throw something or someone out of a window.
Like a physically throwing someone?
Yeah, like physically throw something out of a window.
Not like an idea that I'm going to throw this plan or this idea out of the window.
No, it means literally like I have a window open, maybe I'm in argument, and I throw something out of the window to make a point. That is to defenestrate.
So the word fenestrate, does that mean window?
Fenestration.
Fenestration.
The noun specifically means a window. So D, if you've ever studied the different pieces of a word, D often at the beginning of a word as a prefix means out. So out a window is to defenestrate, to throw something out of a window. Fenestration also is a very formal word that the only example I can think of where that comes from, appropriate because Christmas just passed, is the poem that you've heard of, like, "'Twas the night before Christmas." In that poem, he actually talks about opening the window. He actually talks about opening a fenestration. Again, not a word you ever need to use, but if you ever hear it, you can have a little smile like, ooh, I know what that is.
All right, so the next word, I kind of like it, and it's somewhat like similar to the word colloquial, inebriated. 它听起来就是还蛮 sophisticated, 好像很高级. But it just really means drunk. When someone is drunk, 喝醉酒了. Inebriated. I love that word because it just feels like, oh my God, if I say that word when I'm drunk, I would sound pretty smart.
Except for the most common use of inebriated is actually when a police officer is writing a ticket.
Oh, really?
That is the formal term that they will use to say someone is like drunk. Drunk driving is actually driving while inebriated.
Ah, I see. Now the next one, which is one of my favorites, it has to be my favorite word in the whole entire world. And Nick is laughing because he has a story for you guys. This word is juxtaposition.
I believe this is Sherry's favorite word, juxtaposition. Now, the meaning of it is quite simple. It means two things are placed closely together and they have a contrasting effect. Why this is Sherry's favorite word is because one time I was describing an outfit and I was talking about the contrasting colors, that there was a very dark color and a very vibrant color. And I was like, that contrast is really interesting. And her exact phrase to me was, when I was studying fashion marketing at Parsons, we used to call that juxtaposition.
Okay. In my defense, 所有只要是跟 fashion 界有关系的人应该都会知道这个字，而且真的是这个在 fashion 界是蛮常用的。Okay, so like for example, 如果我要形容今天你穿一个 outfit, 如果你想要让它特别一点 let's say 你穿一个 silk top 是那种丝质的上衣，但是你想要呈现一个 contrast， 那你可能就会穿一个皮的裤子 like, you know, 它的两种的材质非常不一样 to kind of show a juxtaposition. It's literally used in that sense, I think, quite a lot. I don't hear people use this word in any other situation. But yeah, if you want to sound really knowledgeable in styling and fashion, know this word, guys.
Or if you just want to try and power play your business partner to make them show how superior you are, then you can try and use this word. The next word is meandering. Meandering is a fun word. It means to follow a winding course. But this is a word that I like to use to describe someone's thoughts. A lot of times when we're working with someone on their presentation or their speech, we're very careful to think about the structure, the order, the storyline. And one of the ways that we talk about how someone is just wandering off in thought or going random places is we'll use the term meander. Like the end of your presentation sort of meanders around. It doesn't have a clear direction. It doesn't have a main point that you're trying to focus on.
因为我蛮喜欢这个字的，我觉得 Nick 常常用这个字。那我们先来讲一下它的中文的意思。它其实中文意思就是那种很漫长、很弯曲的，你不着边际的，就是好像没有一个重点 right? There is no clear direction where you're going. So I think I hear this word being used to describe someone who is wandering through life. 他可能人生好像没有什么样子的一个 goal, 他没有一个目标, then you can say they're kind of meandering through life.
The last word we want to share with you today is pretentious. Pretentious meaning attempting to impress by affecting greater importance or merit than it actually presents. Basically, the idea behind pretentious is when someone is over-exaggerating their importance or something they own's importance, then we'll say they're very pretentious, which means they care about something that is not that important.
So basically, 中文的意思就是有点自以为是的，有点炫耀的。So pretentious. So funny enough, a lot of these words, if you use them a little bit too much or maybe not necessary, then it will make you seem like a little bit pretentious.
We hope that you had a little bit of fun learning about our favorite words that no one needs to memorize. But if you do decide to try and remember some of these words, they can be fun when they pop up and you go, oh, I know that one. But in reality, do you need to study them? No. For those of you who are interested in more functional vocabulary, Sherry and I have a discontinued podcast that we actually did 150 episodes talking about vocabulary words that you can remember and the context of how they work, called English Cappuccino. It's still online. You're very welcome to go back through it. It was a lot of fun to make.
对，就搜寻英语卡布，你应该就可以找得到它了。For any of our OG listeners, you know that episode. We used to do that every single day, right?
Yes.
5 episodes per week. 但是呢，现在还是蛮多人去听这个 channel 的。So go ahead, you guys can search and hopefully can learn all the different vocabularies every single day. And hope you guys have a fantastic day.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.